Thank you, everybody, for attending this mEducation panel. I'm really, really happy to be here and be the moderator. My name is Sergio Ramirez. I'm the Chief of Party Project Director for All Children Reading Grand Challenge for Development. And I'm based currently in Washington, D.C., or right outside Washington, D.C. And I would like to thank you for attending this panel. Without further ado, I think we have all our panelists, and I'll start by a very brief introduction. I think one of the things, and my colleagues, this is an accessibility panel, and we will have in several other panelists will be using interpreters. One of the things that I found personally easier, especially in the Zoom world, is those of us who don't need the interpreter or be working with the interpreter, we can turn off our camera. It simplifies how many boxes are on the screen. And that's just a suggestion if you could do that. And if you need to turn on your camera during the Q&A, we're more than happy to turn it on. But that seems to help when we have multiple people, and I see we have at least 12 or more boxes of people here. Let me start by introducing the panelists. As I said, this is the accessibility panel. And I'll start in the order that the program shows us here. So we first have Sonia, Shannon, and Lisseth, Amaya. They have been doing their panel. They're going to talk about deaf design books using the Bloom software. They work with 3 organizations in Colombia, El Salvador, and Honduras, and formed a cohort to author their own materials during COVID. Each country has translated their materials and produced by the other 2 countries. Deaf-led and authored material should lead to greater acceptance in deaf communities and provide access to natural sign language in positive worlds. Sonia is the Associate Coordinator for Multilingual Deaf Education at SIL Global Sign Language Team. She was born in El Salvador. She has a master's degree in deaf education from Boston University, is a national certified ASL interpreter, and has served as an academic coordinator in the schools for the deaf in El Salvador. She has been involved with the deaf for more than 30 years. She's currently an associate coordinator for multilingual deaf education for SIL's Global Sign Language team. She provides training, mentoring, coaching in multilingual deaf education. She has been training local deaf leaders to publish sign language books using Bloom Editor. Now, Lisseth Amaya is an educator and cohort member of also at SIL Global Sign Language Team. She is from Cabañas, El Salvador. She was born deaf. One of her sisters is also deaf, as well as 4 other cousins. She teaches social studies at a school for the deaf in El Salvador. She is finishing her bachelor's degree in education with a major in social studies from Universidad Pedagógica de El Salvador. She is the president and founder of FUDIPES, Fundación para Desarrollo Integral de la Persona Sorda. The second is Dr. Valerie Karr and Mr. Vibol Ratanak. And they're going to present on ensuring equity and representation in inclusive education awareness and teaching materials. And this session, they will present the piloting of USAID's checklist for promoting equity and inclusion in educational materials in 2 distinct development projects seeking to promote inclusive early grade literacy and numeracy. The checklist evaluates awareness in materials, teaching and learning materials, and for multilingual country study on inclusive education in Cambodia, Nepal, and Malawi. This session will present lessons learned through the use of the checklist, the next step to ensure inclusion in both awareness and content materials to seek and promote inclusive literacy and numeracy. Dr. Valerie Karr is the CEO of Inclusive Development Partners, with an expertise in development, education, human rights, disability, and a track record of effective right-based advocacy internationally. Dr. Karr's research focuses on ensuring the inclusion of marginalized populations in the development agenda. Transdisciplinary in the nature, Dr. Karr's work spans in diverse fields, and through academic and consulting work, she engages directly on development initiatives at many levels, such as government, ministry, schools, and civil society. We also have here Vibol, Ratanak, and oh, I don't have, oh, Vibol, I'm sorry, I don't have, I have it on, I didn't have it on the list. In the interest of time, I will say that Vibol is working with Cambodia Disabled People's Organization, and she is going to, he will be presenting together with Valerie Karr. Sorry, I didn't notice that the summary was there. I'll go ahead and let Vibol present to introduce himself at the moment. Just in the interest of time, let me continue. The third panel is lessons learned from working with several countries, strategies for multilingual storybook development with our colleagues from RIT and World Around You. So there are ACR GCD Begin Books Project, which is the one all children reading is sponsored. It produces multilingual science storybooks for preschoolers through second grade using the World Around You platform. Really, which is unique in the way that it works with deaf communities in 6 countries: Indonesia, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, Samoa, and Somalia, collaboratively. The goal is to increase the sign and written literacy for deaf children in those countries by providing stories in their local language, using best practices designs for story reading, and deaf adult signers as models. This presentation will share lessons learned from scaling the World Around You platform to multiple countries, whereas deaf leaders in those countries work together to develop storybooks and promote sign and written foundational literacy for deaf children in low and middle income provinces. Dr. Christopher Kurz is a professor with a Master's of Science in Secondary Education program and a director of Mathematics and Science Language and Learning Lab at the National Technical Institute for the Deaf at Rochester Institute of Technology. His research interests include content language, literacy in mathematics and science, deaf experience with math and science learning, and international deaf literacy and sign language documentation. He's currently he is currently a leading principal investigator for 2 international projects using World Around You. The second member of the third panel is Professor Stephen Jacobs. He's a professor who works with Way Around You. Stephen is professor for Rochester Institute of Technology's School of Interactive Games and Media, and is a director of RIT at Open. RIT at and Open. He also holds a position of visiting scholar at the Strong National Museum of Play. His interdisciplinary interests include free and open source software development, game design and development, interactive narrative. He earned his master's in the New School of Social Research. And the last, and not least, of our panelists is our team from eKitabu, also an all children reading awardee. So Matt Utterback is the co-founding chief content officer at eKitabu. Matt is the chief content officer at eKitabu and co-founder. He has been working in the field of digital content creation in EPUB and its preceding accessible technologies since 2004. Before co-founding eKitabu in 2012, he led the sustainable growth of digital divide data, a Skoll award-winning social enterprise in Kenya, Cambodia, and Laos from 80 to 800 employees. Matt has a master's degree from the Central European University and a bachelor's degree from Oberlin College. Last but not least is Georgine Obura. She's the director of Studios KSL at eKitabu. Georgine she and her team are pioneering the development of video storybooks using African sign languages, producing work in Kenya, in Rwanda, Tanzania, Zanzibarian, Ethiopian, and Malawian sign language, and researching the impact of sign language storybooks on language acquisition for learners who are deaf. She served as a teacher and director of the studies at Nagala Secondary School for the Deaf in Nakuru, Kenya, a Mandela Washington Fellow, Georgine was recently named one of Kenya's top 40 under 40 women. Bravo. Anyway, that is our panel. Very, very glad to have you all here. And as we follow the order, I'll start with our colleagues, Shannon and Sonia and Lisseth. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sergio. Thank you for having us here. And thank you to all of you who are attending this session. Lisseth and I will be presenting on deaf design books using Bloom Editor. And this is one of the projects that we have in Latin America. The books created in this project can be found in the Bloom library. Once you go there, just click on sign language and you will be able to access them. These books can also be distributed in different ways besides the Bloom library. But without further ado, let's show the clip that we have prepared.
Hi, Sonia. This is Lauren, the session technician. I don't think I have your video to show right now. Can you send it?
Yes, it's in the Google Drive where all the videos were submitted.
Great. Apologies. Let me just pull that up really quick.
Thank you.
Just one moment. I'm so sorry, Sonia. Could you just tell me what it's called, what the video is called? Is it Ensuring Equity?
Deaf design books. And I can also access and see if I can.
Oh, I see it.
You see it? Well, thank you everyone for your patience. And we need to share with the sound. We're not able to hear it. So once you click share, there is a button at the bottom that it says share with sound. You have to exit the presentation and start it again, probably on share, and then start sharing again.
Apologies, one moment. Apologies, I'm having trouble getting the sound to work.
Would you be able, Sonia, to share it? Maybe you can share from your computer? Or is it easier for them?
All right. Let's see if this works. Oh my gosh. Sonia, I'm so sorry to ask, but could you potentially try to share from your screen? I'm not able to get it to make sound.
Yes. It, it has been disabled.
I suggest, Sonia, maybe as we play the video, that you speak about what's on the video, maybe, so that we can move on. Is that okay, Sonia?
It says that it has been disabled, the sharing capabilities, so I'm not able to share it.
Yes.
Not disabled, so I am not able to share it.
Let me try to fix that for you. One moment.
Yes. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, Sonia, can you try again?
First, we would like to pose the following question. Why is it important to create sign language books? Well, there are approximately 70 million deaf people in the world using more than 200 sign languages. Approximately 32 million are deaf children. 80% of those children do not have access to education, and only 2% of them receive their education in sign language. The next question we would like to address is, why did we choose Bloom software? Bloom is an easy-to-use software that enables local deaf communities to author original books in their local sign language, as well as translate the material produced by others. As you can see, Bloom has an easy-to-follow layout. At the top, it lists the actions that one would like to take, such as create a collection of books, edit a book, or publish a book. To the left, it shows the pages of the book.
We're running a little bit against time here, unfortunately. I'm not sure what the. Can we go back to Sonia?
First, we would like to pose the following question. Why is it important to create sign language books? Well, there are approximately 70 million deaf people in the world using more than 200 sign languages. Approximately 32 million are deaf children. 80% of those children do not have access to education, and only 2% of them receive their education in sign language. The next question we would like to address is, why did we choose Bloom software? Bloom is an easy-to-use software that enables local deaf communities to author original books in their local sign language, as well as translate the material produced by others. As you can see, Bloom has an easy-to-follow layout. At the top, it lists the actions that one would like to take, such as create a collection of books, edit a book, or publish a book. To the left, it shows the pages of the book. To add one could be as simple as choosing a pre-designed page. The layout of each page could also be customized if one desires. When you click on the gear, a window will pop up where one can choose, among other things, the size of the letter, the spacing, or the alignment. This is one of the books that was created using Bloom software. Here you can observe an arrow on each side of the page. By clicking on the arrow, the page will turn in the direction of the arrow. This feature allows the reader to turn the pages back and forth, just like one would with a book. Now let's talk about the Latin American COVID-19 project, which was made possible by generous gifts from donors. It consists of 3 countries working together: El Salvador and Honduras in Central America and Colombia in South America. We partnered with a school for the deaf in Colombia and Honduras, and a deaf-run foundation in El Salvador, which also has deaf teachers among its members. The first step was to acquire the necessary equipment to create sign language books. Once the equipment was set up, we proceeded with the Bloom software training. One of the goals of the project was to provide COVID-19 information to deaf communities in these 3 countries. That information was to be delivered by using a natural local sign language to benefit deaf children's language acquisition. Some of the deaf signing in the videos have deaf siblings and/or are married to other deaf. Spanish is also used in these books. These bilingual books are a great resource for deaf schools in Colombia, El Salvador, and Honduras. Another goal was for the project to become self-sustaining. For this reason, they were trained in the use of the software. They are the ones that write an original script. They've also created their own illustrations, and they are the ones to sign and film the books. It is a locally owned project. One can ask, how do they work together? Thanks to technology, the teams are able to work remotely by using Marco Polo, WhatsApp, and Zoom. They use Marco Polo to share their material throughout the week and to provide feedback to each other. They use WhatsApp to share some of their material and to coordinate Zoom meetings. During these meetings, they review their material, provide feedback, and support each other. Here you can see the team reviewing one of the scripts. They also review their illustrations, their signing, filming, and at the end, they celebrate when one of them uploads a book to the Bloom library. here is a list of the books they have uploaded to the Bloom library. The image on the left shows when the book is being uploaded, and the image on the right was taken as soon as the book appeared in the library. We would like to conclude with an image of the team and two GSLT members celebrating the publication of sign language books in the Bloom Library.
Thank you, Sonia, for the video. I suggest that Lisseth, I know that she's here. If that's okay, we will leave a little time at the end and during the Q&A to add so that we get our other panelists time to present. But okay, Sonia, apologies for the technical difficulties, but time is moving on. So thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Lisseth. So let me move on to inclusive development partners in the Cambodia Disabled People's Organization. So Dr. Karr and Vibol Ratanak. Thank you.
Great. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we're presenting two projects today, and so I'm going to be very brief, 5 minutes for myself, and then I will pass it over to my colleague Ratanak in Cambodia. So the part I'm presenting is on USAID's equity checklist, how to ensure equity and representation in educational materials. So the equity checklist was drafted by USAID to help development workers and evaluators identify, evaluate, and create educational materials that promote equity and inclusion. And as we've already seen, we've seen a bit of equity and inclusion in the last presentation, right? So we see that whereas we develop materials, it's really important that we don't reinforce existing stigma or marginalization. We don't want to increase the negative impacts on our marginalized groups that we're working with in the community. An example of this would be if we design children's storybooks that use incorrect or derogatory slang terms to describe a marginalized group. This will reinforce systemic inclusion instead of seeking to address human rights and equity. What is the equity checklist for? You can use it for all educational materials, so fiction and nonfiction educational materials. And you can use it across all modalities of delivery. For this pilot, we actually piloted it for a radio program, as well as for print storybooks for children. But it can be used for audio, mobile phone, digital, and so on. It's applicable from pre-primary through higher education, and you can even use it through training programs to make sure that your trainings are accessible. One thing you can consider is that you can use a collection of materials to evaluate and design, or you can use just one segment. So I have an example where we use individual radio segments to do the equity checklist. And then for our work in Cambodia, actually, we're using an entire grade level selection of storybooks. So since I'm very short on time, I wanted you to know what the checklist was and why it's important. You record background demographic information. For our pilot, we were looking at gender representation, disability representation, and ethnic and linguistic minorities. You look at the design team and how the materials are designed and the competencies and skills of that team, as well as the importance of participation. So do we involve the communities themselves, organizations of persons with disabilities to participate in the design team process? And then we also analyze the materials themselves. So are they representing diverse characters and subjects? Are the images diverse? The dialogue and narration promoting active and dynamic engagement? Are the materials accessible? And is the overall tone of any material and story providing a positive portrayal of marginalized groups? So we piloted again in USAID's Arithmetic and Inclusive Education program in Tanzania. And then we also piloted it with USAID's multi-country study on inclusive education in Cambodia, where those storybooks were created. So the first project was a radio program, and the second one was a storybook program. I didn't want to give you the breakdown of exactly how we did the analysis, since I only have 5 minutes and my video goes into that a bit. But what we learned from the radio program is that we really need to include the perspective of those with disabilities in the program design. We saw that there was a bit of misperception on what disability is and how to promote positive and non-derogatory language. At times on the radio interview, some slang terms were used, or comedic effect was employed to try and kind of humanize the content, but it really enforced some stereotypical representation. So we recommend that you pilot and review your episodes. You include your diverse populations in the design of those. You really pay attention to your language and terminology. And then the other thing we found is that there needed to be more awareness to tune into the radio show. So how do we reach out to our communities and our audiences to participate? And then I'm just going to leave you. This is our work in Cambodia. And so these are just a little bit of examples of how we collected demographic information. And I thought visuals would be nice. So the number of subjects you would record via image and via text, and you would compile this. The recommendation is a diverse sample would be around 15% at least having disability, and 50% being girls or women. Disability language is very important. I'm just going to glide over this. But the key points I really want to say is that this goes a step beyond kind of this tokenistic inclusion. It's really about representation and diversity. So the checklist also goes into detail to say, are diverse characters active in protagonist roles? Those are just some pictures. Do they have dynamic personalities in different scenarios and different positions? You see there's a girl pilot there. And do they have relationships that promote respect, belonging, and social equality? So that's it from my part of the presentation. And I want to hand it over to my colleague Ratanak so that he can present a little bit about data collection in Cambodia during the COVID pandemic.
Yes, everyone can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Vibol. I'm from Cambodia Disabled People Organization. And today I'm very happy and I will a presentation about the way we use the technology. So here, I would like to say that I work only in Cambodia, but the project we work with 2 different countries like Malawi and Nepal as you can see in the slide. And here is that we have a lot of data collection plan before the pandemic, but because of the COVID, so many of our activities were affected. Here is our strategy, and this is my team in Cambodia, data collector. And here we would like to say that we are not technology expert, but we use the technology to work while we had the COVID-19 pandemic. Just you can see that we have Zoom, we have Telegram, Skype, Kobo, Tubok, and we also have the pre-test and post-test survey during that time. Here is our success that I want to share with everyone here. It means like IDP were providing to our CDPO regarding to the skill or to build their capacity regarding to our project of each activity. And also we think that we are respect to our interviewee, and we also flexible regarding to their schedule. Here is like we plan that we going to test our tool in the province or face-to-face, but unfortunately we cannot do that. So we use the the video to test our tool, like the checklist or survey, something like that. Here is I want to mention like the CDPO staff with physical disability has improved the accessibility and encounter of shoes barrier using the technology for evaluation than travel in person. It means that as an experience, we are a person with disability. So when we go to province, might be some place is not accessible. So if we use the technology, so we can implement our activity in the office or in the home by using the technology. And this point is we would like to say that possible reduction in the bias amount of interview. It's a honest interview through the technology where we're talking about the disability. Why I say that because if we interview face to face, they might be see our disability and they might be very prepared, not using the discrimination language. And by this, we just talking through the phone, they cannot see us, so they will be say the honestly word, and we can say that we can find out what we gonna do to build their capacity regarding to disability. And here is our next step to our activity. Thank you for everyone to for pay attention to the presentation. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ratanak, and that's it for IDP. Thank you, everyone. Sergio, you're on mute. I'm not sure who's next in the lineup.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, because I'm frozen, my Zoom completely froze, but sorry, but I will log off and log on. The next group is World Around You and our colleagues from RIT. So please proceed. Thank you. I'll log off and log on again. I think I have it. So go ahead, Chris and Stephen.
Yes, sure. Okay, I appreciate that. This is Chris now. Okay.
You could hold on 1 second. The interpreter has lost the deaf person. Allison, do you have him on your screen?
I see Christopher now, and then Susan was signing.
Okay, I've lost him. Hold on. If you can go ahead, Allison, I'll search
Sure.
for him.
Okay. So this is Susan. We're going to reconnect the interpreter. Okay, I want to make sure we can see ourselves here.
Hi, okay. I think, hello everyone, this is Chris. Very happy to see so many faces and so many presentations. Sergio, thank you so much. Really happy to be able to share our work that we've been doing this year. Right now, I'd like to start we're working with 6 different countries. You can see them here on the PowerPoint. These are our 6 different countries for the pilot program that we're beginning with. So we've been actually translating the stories into these languages. You can see them here. And we couldn't make this happen without deaf people being involved from each of these prospective companies. So all of these people, these 3 or 4 people you see here, have taken on leadership roles in the projects in their countries. So we have 4 of them. There's Bakar Ali.
From Somalia.
There's Lauren Waija from the Philippines. There's Michael Vea from Fiji, and Krishnir Sen from Samoa.
Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea, thank you.
So two are linguists by training with quite a bit of, done quite a bit of work in this field of translation. Here's an example of what, all the same story, but how it's presented in the various sign languages from each of those countries.
So as you can see, the different stories have all been translated into their respective languages. Because of COVID, it has been a challenge. We've had to make some adjustments because of COVID in each of the countries. It has affected a lot of our work. A lot of our work has had to move remote, and the team had to be very flexible and responsible for their own process, so to speak. They had to rely on connections in the community, the deaf people in the communities in those countries themselves. We actually had to team with them to see how to provide these different languages. So each country had their own different teams, and they are very involved in each of the video clips. You can see the sign language and the supported languages. You can also see the writer, those who came up with the stories themselves. So we would actually meet to discuss different topics about every 6 weeks. And we also had to do some training on the individual platforms for the deaf or the way around you. We had to make sure that they were comfortable using the platform and seeing the stories. And sometimes the communication just was not happening. We attempted things, different software like Facebook, FaceTime,
Slack, email.
Slack and email, just to be able to communicate with each other and share feedback on what everyone was working on. And thank God for that technology that we actually had it. We were able to keep these meetings. And since everyone was able to be flexible, the team could not physically get together because many of the people were on lockdown and they were forced to stay at home. So we really had to continue and try to think how we could actually make this work. But we actually did make it work, and we were able to continue with the project. Of course, we did learn a lot, and a lot of what we learned benefited our team, and we are just going to keep on progressing. So this was one thing that we did talk about a lot when it came to translation or even creating the stories and matching them to the new stories that we were receiving. We had a lot of discussions on our team about the benefit and understanding of the different sign languages themselves. Some of them are very different, but they also have a lot of differences in the language themselves as well. So the challenge was
to find specialized terminology. Perhaps they didn't have it in their own native language, and then in which case, what was the alternative? So we did have to find ways to include the specialized vocabulary of the specific deaf communities that we were serving, getting that feedback directly from the communities.
So here you can see this one here. that I'm playing right now, the movement. We discussed this movement a lot and how to make it
Interesting for the audience.
interesting for the audience, because it just looked like a movement. So we actually discussed the movement itself. Go ahead, Allison, I'm sorry.
Sorry, changing the hand shape and the facial expression to use a certain movement, but we had to also have it rhyme included.
So you can actually see here him taking on the characterization, more focused on how the structure of the language was included in his language, meaning how you involve dialogue, what that looks like. It's not just a picture and then with a comment. We really needed to match the concept behind what was being shown. So we wanted to make sure we were showing that whole concept. So there was the characterization that was taken on, which helps deaf children really understand the point, and the repetitive structure as well really cements that again and again and again in a deaf child's mind. It's different for speaking with the repetitiveness of speaking. Sign language has a similar way to show this in its own language. Now we'd like to talk about how we developed the EPUB for the books. Let me go ahead and, as it pulls up, you can see it. So with the EPUB, you can actually have it some things off and some things not.
You can read offline rather than having to be online in these certain areas, which is a very successful way, especially in the Philippines. So it's got 40 MB, if you will, and so it allows for the videos to stream at a lower rate of speed, and also offline, as I've mentioned.
So, sorry, Chris and team, we're running out of time. One more minute, please.
Sure, I just want to go ahead and mention the partnering and the collaboration and the support.
We just want to ensure there's access for all deaf children throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Stephen. I'm sorry for the time. I'm sorry, I'm the timekeeper, the cruel part of being a moderator. Thank you, colleagues. So so now to eKitabu, please, and Matt and Georgine. Thank you.
Georgine, do you just want to start given the time? I'll let you start.
All right. Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank Sergio so much for the introduction. For maybe some of you who may have missed it, my name is Georgine Auma, and this is my sign name. I'm the director of Studio KSL at eKitabu, and I'm happy to meet all of you again at the mEducation family, though online. At eKitabu, one of our main aims is to develop accessible digital content to support inclusive education in Africa. Our head office is based in Nairobi, and we are working within 14 African countries. In the year 2018, with the support of ACR, that's All Children Reading Book Post, we launched our Studio KSL in Kenya to develop content for Kenya Sign Language for deaf and hard of hearing children, and also for teachers. This is to support language acquisition and also to build communication skills as a pathway to literacy. We are happy that we have been able to expand this work and to continue supporting children to use sign language, that is in Kenya. And also we are doing work in Malawi with All Children Reading, and also in Rwanda with the ACR Unrestricted. We are currently doing or making videos in 5 sign languages. We have Kenyan Sign Language, we have Rwanda Sign Language, we have Tanzanian Sign Language, Malawi Sign Language, and also Ethiopian Sign Language. We have been able to develop over 200 accessible early grade reading and learning materials, which are accessible and have different learning features, and depending on the child's need. As you already know, there's a lot of need for collaboration and working with different people and different partners, because honestly, it's very hard to work alone because you don't have all the capacity to do things alone. And so we are happy to be able to collaborate with different partners. And so though we have been working a lot virtually because of COVID, we have been able to work with different national associations of the deaf. We've been working with ministries of education and curriculum authorities in production of videos. We are working with learners and teachers of learners with disability, and also working with the community to continue supporting our work. These collaborations have enabled us to do a couple of things. One, we've managed to innovate and also to lower the cost of producing sign language materials, and also to make this work scalable. We are also advocating with the deaf communities, working with advocating with the governments and also different educational ministries to recognize sign language, low-cost sign language, because this is a foundation for building towards literacy. And also we have been training teachers on the appropriate methods of training as we produce learning materials that they can be able to use in classrooms. We have been able to scale this work, and has been great to meet most of you in our work as well. For our materials, which we have been created, they are fully used in school, and they are impacting the work that we are doing. And we are looking forward to have a recognition in each of these countries for local sign languages. 90% of deaf children have their first exposure to sign language when they start school, and they lack a language foundation. And the lack of availability of local sign language materials means that they do not have, it also means that they do not have the appropriate age-appropriate materials for their education. So some of these materials, yes, are available, but they only follow a sound-based process, meaning that they do not have the natural language for deaf children, which is sign language. And traditionally, this creating of these materials is usually thought as an expensive piece of work. And so we are encouraging the governments to invest because they feel that it's usually expensive. I think because of time, I'll hand over to my colleague Matt, and maybe he can talk more about metrics and also what we are doing to expand our work. Thank you.
Sergio, I think I'm happy to hand back the time for questions, given the time, rather than.
Matt, actually, I got good news. For those who can stay, well, our mEducation team, tech team says that we have open this link. So if people can stay, because there's so much to cover, we'll say maybe 10 minutes extra. So go ahead, Matt, please.
Okay, what you, sure. So I think a very interesting topic, picking up from Georgine's, sorry, I'll share my video, picking up from Georgine's presentation, is measuring utilization of accessible content. And so again, rather than launching off into the presentation, I'd say we're very happy to connect with colleagues. We wish we could do that over lunch. Of course, we can't do that here. But after we distribute these materials, we're using our e-reader application, the open source eKitabu application based on Readium, to measure how this content is used by learners, teachers, and communities in the field, and particularly in classrooms. And some of the issues we're dealing with that we'd love to collaborate with others on, and for the sake of time, I'll just open up and put my email in chat, and we'd love to hear from you. For example, are learners using the text-to-speech feature in accessible digital content? Are they using the human narrated audio feature? Are they increasing the font size? Are they watching the sign language video? And so when we think about universal design for learning and allowing learners to choose how they interact with and read a book, we're very interested in seeing actually what they're choosing and how they're being supported by these different accessibility features. And so our app is collecting those metrics of what's happening and what people are choosing. But what does it mean if someone's watching a video over and over again? What does it mean if they're not finishing the book? They may spend a lot of time on one page. They may only use the glossary feature, showing the glossary of sign language. So working with colleagues, we'd love to start digging deeper into how these utilization patterns lead to impact in learning outcomes and language acquisition. So I'll keep it short for now, but I'll drop my email. Oh, thank you, Will. My colleague Will dropped my email in chat, and we'd love to follow up with all of you on these topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And as I said, if people want to stay, we got the link, so it's not going to cut off at 12 Eastern time. So maybe I should, I'm looking at the chat for questions, and I'm going to go back again, asking questions for each one of you, and then I'll do a very summary sort of reflection on all four. Really, really interesting, and I wish we had 2-3 hours to talk about this. So let me just start again with our team in the SIL team. It was Shannon or Lisseth, if they want to answer. Well, what are the plans that your team has for working together in the future? And I would add one thing, because I was in Honduras, so I know these people, and I really appreciate the work you're doing in Central America. So what are the plans for the team to work together in the future, Lisseth or Sonia? And I had a very specifically, is there a lot of difference in the sign language between Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala? You talked about, adapting the content. So if you could quickly address those kind of questions, please. Then we'll go on to the next 3 groups. Thank you. Sonia, Lisseth?
Yes, could you spotlight Lisseth, please? Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. You're talking about the communication in Central America. Yes, it's been beautiful, the different sign languages. When the team started to work together, there were 5 deaf and 4 hearing people involved. And what did we do? Did we use international signs? No, each one used their own sign language. And if we couldn't understand, then we will ask the person, what is that sign? And we will learn from each other. It was a beautiful process. We as the team the deaf, we were the ones coming with ideas. We were leading everything. The hearing people were just in the back. If case we needed something, in case we needed some type of assistance, then they were there. For example, in Spanish, the written sentences, they will help with that. If we needed some support in the technology of the Bloom software, then they will support that. But it was so beautiful to work all of us together.
Thank you, Lisseth. Thank you. I'm very dear and near a place I spent 3 years in Honduras, so I know the beautiful work that all of you are doing there. Amazing. Congratulations. Let me move on then. Valerie had to leave. If she's still here, by any chance? I think she just left. Okay. Well, there's any questions for Vibol, Ratanak, please put them here on the chat. I will go back, Vibol. We might have a couple of questions. So let me ask a question to our friends from all around you, RIT. So how do you work collaboratively with deaf communities? Do you use different approaches in different countries? And how do you plan to expand in the future? Chris or Stephen?
Chris first, then me.
Okay, well, the approach of working with people from other countries, it's good to know who's leading the team. And that's gonna decide what's the best, most effective way to address things going forward. We did discuss how we could work to support each other, because it really depends on the team lead and what their needs are. So there's the tech part, the open source technology part, with new features in there for meeting the needs of different cultures, different countries, as well as different content. So there's the sign language, there's the written translation, then there's the recording parts of things, and we were supporting all of those avenues.
And because what we have is not a product, but a platform. The idea is to build over time a community of people who will go ahead and take this over on their own. So our NTID, RIT is not centrally controlling it, but the countries and the educators themselves are working together to grow the community.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Stephen. And I have a question then for eKitabu, our team in eKitabu. Georgine, I think you mentioned something about the effort to advocate for the recognition of a country's national sign language. I think Matt already talked about the metrics, which I could go on, Matt, talking about metrics because I love metrics and how do you effectively measure how many, which page and what book they use or what text are they reading. But Georgine, you said advocating for a recognition of country's national sign language. I think you mentioned that. Is there your efforts in Africa to recognize sign languages and what eKitabu is doing to that effect?
Georgine was explaining there's some freezing.
So I didn't get the full question. Apologies, Georgine seems not to get me clearly. But I think you're talking about the efforts on advocating for recognition of national sign language in other countries. Yes. So as we know, as Radha have mentioned, we only have 5 countries which are fully recognized sign language as national language. The rest of the 51 haven't done that yet. So what we are doing, we are involving the deaf communities. So their efforts in recognition of their national sign language, what we are doing is to support by developing accessible learning materials for their deaf children, because most of the governments emphasize that they would want some evidence of some sort. And so they want to confirm, is sign language truly a language on its own? So how we can do that is providing a context and providing content which is available in sign language. And that's why we develop the content that we develop. We document this national sign language. So this will serve as evidence, and they can use this to support their efforts in recognition of sign language, and also working closely with national associations of the deaf, so that their sign language can be recognized. So basically what we are doing is collaborating together, sharing with them resources, and especially in terms of documenting sign language, which is what most of the African governments emphasize on. So they would recognize sign language as a national sign language if they had evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgine. Very good answer. Very good answer. I do think it's a part of our work as All Children Reading is part of that, making awareness and promoting that recognition. Last question for Vibol, so that he can speak a little bit very quickly about some challenges of doing remote data collection in Cambodia during COVID. I know that was very challenging in every country. So Vibol,
yes.
Could you please speak to that?
Thank you for your question. I can say that the challenge is in the remote that we collecting the data is like the schedule and also the time for the interviewee, because we normally set the time, we set the schedule, but actually when we call or we conduct a meeting, we find out that there are many barriers for them to connect with us. For example, like we are through the calling through the phone, some number we are not can reach them. And for those who can use the Zoom or Skype, it might be difficult for them because the accessible internet or Wi-Fi is not working. So that's why our project might take more time. Not can like be difficult to communication with them, but we try on our best to find a solution to make sure that our data collection is more reliable and can be like the good data that we can find out or we can evaluate in the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate this. As I want to comment as a moderator, I do want to thank everybody. I have some key takeaways, and I hope it works. My screen works. Please tell me, do you see my takeaways? Somebody? Yes? Yes? Yep. You see my screen, right? So I think it's, yes? Do we see my screen? My core takeaway?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. So I just to summarize a little bit, I really appreciate, I think some key takeaways are the importance of collaborative partnerships across the world. It reaps greater benefits in exchanging tips and strategies and providing support across implementers and solution providers. I'm going to put on my All Children Reading hat, and I think that's part of what we are doing as All Children Reading, and I know through mEducation and other forums, so I really appreciate it. I think the second one, empowering in-country deaf managers and team players, and especially in the decision making about design and story development, and so it gets for more momentum in maintenance. I think this speaks a little bit to what Valerie was saying about making sure there's positive images and avoiding those other sort of not very productive ways of reflecting, and having people in the deaf community reflect themselves, and those materials are out there. I think enhancing sign language translation in storybooks using rich and diverse sign language and linguistic features, national, region, local sign languages. Well, again, that's very much in the heart also of what we're All Children Reading, especially with our competition called Begin with Books, which our colleagues referred to. I think it is just like written language, the more contextualized and the more the vocabulary or the richness of sign language in each country connects those children that need to express themselves. So I do agree with that. And using technology to enhance communications, regular meetings, taking turns running meetings, or taking 30 minutes before to organize this meeting, which we did, and we still had some technical issues. But I do want to reflect that I think ed technology has really, during COVID, has made me reflect, that what we would be doing in 1995 or 1985, since some of us lived that long, but when we didn't have all these connections, what would children with disabilities do to connect or to be accessible? I'm writing a blog on that respect, because those of us who had a little more time and remember those days in the 1990s or before the internet or fast connectivity, a lot of things would have been very, very challenging and not impossible, because you can always reach. But I think we need to continue betting on technology as much as we do on pencils and papers and textbooks. They're an integral part for the work we do. I think on behalf of All Children Reading and me as the moderator, I think I was very interested in your presentation and the 30 or more people who attended this panel. I think as we say, the all in All Children Reading includes all the children that are blind or deaf or have other kind of disabilities. And you, our panelists, have shown an amazing, great effort. I do appreciate. Thank you very much for this panel. And please share your contacts here on the chat box. And hope we can continue meeting throughout this symposium and other opportunities. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day, good evening, or good night, depending what part of the world you're in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you.